States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil. Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. There is no doubt that he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us.
We are one nation. We can't be divided. We have to be one nation under God. That means if we make a mistake, we make it as a single country, the United States of America, not the divided States of America.
One of the most important roles of the news media is to make sure the American public never sees the effects of war. So we see the tanks from which the shells are fired. We see the soldiers firing those shells. We don't see the people killed and maimed by those shells. The American public has received a very one-sided view of war.
Attorney General Ashcroft moved aggressively after the attacks, expanding the executive branch's legal authority.
Our assault on terror, our war on terror, allows us to justify and legitimate a whole bunch of things that I think are pretty scary and frightening.
At crafting a certain image for him, actually based to some extent on his weaknesses. He's not a guy who was born in Connecticut and was a legacy admission to Phillips Andover and Yale. He's not a guy who has the Queen of England as a cousin. You know, he's not a guy from a fabulously wealthy family. None of that is the case. He's just Will Rogers. He's just a regular guy, and when he messes up the language, it proves he's just like you and me.
If I had a little window into the average American household, you know, like 5 minutes on their TV screen at night, to tell them how to decode the kind of propaganda they're going to see from President Bush about security, I think, you know, I would say, first of all, don't just look at the images. Don't just look at Bush landing on the aircraft carrier, Bush surrounding himself with our troops.
If he were in charge, he would fight a more sensitive war on terror. America has been in too many wars for any of our wishes, but not a one of them was won by being sensitive.
The liberation of Iraq is a crucial advance in the campaign against terror. We've removed an ally of Al-Qaeda.
Code Orange Plus. The Fed's decision to raise the terror alert to high.
America on high alert from biggest cities to smallest towns.
Red, yellow, orange. We're afraid. Be afraid. What level of fear? The government can program that without any justification. You know, we have an intelligence report. The terrorists are about to attack. Who? We don't know. Where? We don't know. What? We don't know. But you tell us, so now we're afraid.
You know, you don't really think of substantive things because our elections rarely turn anymore on substantive issues. But this is one that really needs to be decided on the substance because our country faces real threats. But these guys are not going after the right threats. They are pursuing a pre-existing agenda under the guise of fighting terrorism that is going to bankrupt our country, that is going to put our troops at risk, and that is going to make the terrorist threat to us grow over time instead of diminish.
The Mail Online reports social websites harm children's brains, chilling warning to parents from top neuroscientists. And I've read over these findings. This just matches literally, it's one of the most studied things out there. Thousands of other government industry studies, internal studies by television companies themselves. You can just, as we talked about, Google the term TV viewing Alzheimer's or TV viewing brain damage. And TV lowers people, because of the flicker rate and other issues, down into a dreamlike state of lower cognitive development. And the average person watches over 4 hours of TV, children even more. And so they don't, sociologically, psychologically, they don't know how to communicate with people anymore. They don't know how to talk to people. They'll sit 2 feet away, text messaging somebody who's right by them. And this is accelerating as people literally get sucked into their television sets, is the analogy. They are becoming, bored. And parents like it because they can go off and watch TV themselves or surf the internet. And, radio. And you can Google these studies, because you have to listen, and then your mind images everything you're hearing. If I say yellow duck, your brain just imaged a yellow duck. That made more neural pathways open up. If I say green penguin, you are now imaging a green penguin. Same thing with reading. Reading and listening to radio hit the same areas of the brain, but the studies show radio even more increases intelligence, because you have to image it just from hearing it one way, and then with reading you're seeing. And then some studies say that it's both good for the brain, but that it just hits different areas, but it's similar. You can go read all these studies. But with flicker rates, with TVs and high-def screens especially, it's a flash. And your brain's picking up the flash. And it's a flashing light that flashing lights make people have seizures. And they've coded, the Pentagon, back in the 40s, had even calibrated the televisions and did studies, these are public, on what mesmerized. They designed it to take control of your mind. And so they are hitting you and bombarding you with this. And there's all these studies out. It's just a fact that violent video games bring you into an even lower state, because you would think that because you're concentrating and watching a screen with a flicker rate that it would actually increase cognitive, but it lowers the brain not just into a sleep state or a sleepwalking state, but playing video games for long periods of time will, and people die doing this, will bring you into a state that is only found in people with serious sleep apnea, very low oxygen levels. But the oxygen's there, but the areas of the brain go into death mode. And because the people are fully focused, they're basically like hypnotized, they're meditating. And I remember playing video games, and that was just Donkey Kong and stuff, and I would get so focused because of the levels, it took such exact focusing, and for hours I would sit there and play. And I remember stopping the game when somebody came in, and I would be dizzy, and in a daze. You were under mind control. But now you're not beating stuff with a hammer. It is ripping people's guts out, slaughtering humans.
Most of the influencing minds and mind control stuff is not subliminal. It is true that a lot of the technologies used are very conducive to that, specifically television and video stuff. They've got the flicker rate figured out, such that, and the technology in general creating this passive state, which is almost like a hypnotic state, trance state, and which is easily conditioned, where information just kind of goes in and is absorbed and conditioned without being processed through the analytical, thoughtful mind about considering the information and deciding whether you want to take it on or not. So the more you put yourself in front of the boob tube and those kind of screens, the more susceptible you are. That's true. But the other part of it is that the more you put yourself in those situations, the more you're getting the propaganda that the controllers of that technology and those channels want you to get. And as we know, it's all corporate control, right? So they want you to be conditioned to buy things and become a consumerist.